Christy, should we have like an overall adoption of the agenda? 'Cause that's-
We can do that. They're usually so short that it wasn't in the previous templates, but you can do that.
just because we don't have the presentation. It's 4 p.m. and we'll officially open the Port Hueneme Water Agency for Monday, September 16, 2019, here at Port Hueneme City Hall. Could we have the roll call, please?
Member Hernandez.
Here.
Member Marcus. Here. Member Rollins. Here. Ex officio member Jacobson. Vice Chair Bouchard.
Here.
And Chair Munoz-Schnapp.
Here. And we have public comment then set out at this time, and not seeing anyone that represents the public, correct? No? Okay. So we'll move on then. We don't necessarily have a listing for adoption of the agenda, but I just want to make a change in that. We won't have presentation item number 1 available today, but it will be available in October 21st for the team. So if you can mark your calendars for that, and we'll have United Water Conservation District, the groundwater team, actually present information about where they stand with their new facility add-on. Okay, so with that change on the agenda, are there any other changes or for the agenda? No? Okay. Well, we'll make sure that if we have anything that has to do with presentations and such, we can add it on to the next month, just making sure that we have an adoption of the agenda for the meeting. Okay, great, thanks. So we'll move on to consent agenda. We have 2 items there: minutes of the Water Agency regular meeting of June 17, 2019. To recommend approving the Water Agency minutes, and finance cash disbursements for April 6th, 2019 through September 6th, 2019, and that's recommendation to ratify the disbursements.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right, motion carries unanimously. And then we'll move on to business items. We'll start with item number 4, Brackish Water Reclamation Demonstration Facility Operational Report, and that's a presentation by Mr. Villafana.
Good afternoon, Board. Nice summer break. Well, good news, this is the operational report for June, July, and August. And the good news was the plant was in operation the entire 3 months of June, July, and August. The silt density index was below 1.3 for all 3 months. Our water usage edged up each month, but we expect usage to start dropping in October. In June, we had a demand of 3.26 million gallons per day. In May, the demand was 3.04 million gallons per day. So it was approximately 0.22 million gallons more than in May. And the split for June was United Water 82% and Cayugas 18%. In July, the demand moved up again. It was 3.5 million gallons per day, and that was up from June, which was 3.26. That was 0.45 million gallons per day more in July than in June. The split for July was 79.7 United and 20.28 for Cayugas. In August, again, we moved up slightly. The demand was 3.55 million gallons per day, which was just slightly over July. And the split for August was 78.63% for United and 21.37 for Cayugas. And when demand goes up, we end up taking a little more Cayugas water. So our allocation for the year is 3,470 acre feet. What we've used to date is 2,090 acre feet. And since usage should be dropping, we expect to finish the year below our allocation amount. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for staff?
I have one question.
Yes, Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Villafana, for your report. Can you tell me how this compares to the same months last year? Do you have just a
don't
general
have-
idea?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but typically the months of June, July, and August do edge up. Those are our high usage months. So I could get back to you on that, but I'm sure it's probably the same trend as this year.
Okay, thank you. And then I had another question about our water delivery system. I know that Ventura is going through, or had some difficulties during the fires with their pumping stations. Do we have any similar issues where we could be prevented from delivering water during a power outage or major emergency, fire, flood, something like that?
Well, City of Ventura has they've got a lot of elevation change. So there's a number of pressure zones there. We only have one pressure zone in Port Hueneme because we're relatively flat.
Right.
We do not have a backup generator at the water treatment plant, so we wouldn't be able to get water to that. Now, but
We
the
do
pump-
or we do not?
We do not have to run the plant pumps. What we do have is, we would go in a bypass mode and the water would be, it depends on where it's coming from, what United's water situation is, because that would affect where we're going. However, I'm in the process of getting our 2 standby wells rehab, and I'm going to be presenting that to the city council. What we've done is, we have 2 standby wells, and these wells can be plugged into our system in time of an emergency. And I'm getting proposals to pull the pumps and TV the wells. I feel they're a very valuable asset to the city in time of emergency. So rather than put them inactive, we're going to keep them in a mode. We have to put in some new remote metering devices. We run them once a month right now just for testing. But there's been a change in the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, which requires automated metering. So I'm looking into the cost of installing these automated meters so that we can report to Fox Canyon, and also what it's going to take to rehab these wells. And I should be coming to the city council probably in early November to give a report on that. So that would be our backup in time, and we have a backup generator there. So we do have the capacity to put these wells into operation.
Okay.
And-
Those weren't really questions I had related to the report, but they
Well,
were just,
Well,
yeah.
it's just so.
But I did want to
But
ask
we
those.
don't have the pressure problems that the city of Ventura has, because we only have one pressure zone.
Okay, all right, thank you. No more questions.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Member Marcus?
Well, I just wanted to follow up, so there's no generator. If the stand-up wells were to be online if necessary, I'm not quite sure how we get that water to.
We have generators there.
Member Rollins?
So it's great that we've been able to use the membrane for the 90 days.
Yes, we've.
What level of use, or is it by level of use, do we have to start kicking in and not being able to use it? What are the characteristics that would make us not be able to use the membrane anymore? Is it like if we reach a certain level of use and it can't handle it anymore? Or what would be the determining factors?
We measure the silt density index on a daily basis, and that measures the amount of basically silts and fines that are coming. And before, when United was drawing from their lower wells during the drought time, the iron and manganese raised the silt density index to a threshold above 3. 3 is the threshold we use, and if it's above 3, we shut the plant down and we don't operate the membranes, because you run the risk of fouling the membranes quicker. You could force water through there, but it would not be, it's not advisable.
So when it gets to that number 3 level, is it better then to use the more expensive Calegas water with the idea that if you can't use that, like it'll mess up the membrane and cost us more money in the long run?
Well, we don't run Cayugas water through the membranes, that's direct.
No, but using less, I guess, groundwater when it gets to that level and supplement, I don't know.
I'd have to look into it, but we take more Cayugas water when the demand goes up.
Okay.
We try to use the lower cost United water. And we went into bypass mode a number of times when it was during the drought because the silt density index was too high and we didn't want to run the plant and foul our membranes. So the quality of the water goes down. We're still getting a blend with Cayugas, but most of the water going out is United water. And if we're not running the membranes, then the quality of the water, it's still safe to drink, but the quality of the water goes down.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions for staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Villafana. And then I guess you're going to follow it up with a budget update, item number 5.
Correct. This has been a collaborative effort between Mr. Martinez and myself, and we're working on fine-tuning the budget, and we plan to bring it back to the October meeting. And also at the October meeting, the Fleming consulting firm will be making a presentation regarding the results of the PHWA facility condition assessment. And so as far as the budget, these are the steps Mr. Martinez and I are going to be following next. We're going to do a cost of service study based on the recommendations from the Fleming facility condition assessment. So that's contingent on that. And then we have the GMA replenishment fee, the groundwater management fee. They're going to come up with a fee, and we're not just going to be per acre foot. We don't know what it is yet, but that's supposed to be coming out in February. So these are two factors that are going to affect our budget. And then, third item would be present a new proposed budget inclusive of a 5-year capital improvement plan that includes the recommendations from the Fleming report, the GMA replenishment fee, and that would be presented depending on when GMA gets that replenishment fee to us. It could be it could be in February, or it could be in March. So that's the next steps Mr. Martinez and I are collaborating on for the budget.
And so we'll see that here in October at this meeting?
Well, you're gonna see our preliminary budget in October, but we're still waiting for the final budget is going to be coming out in February or March, because we have to include the 5-year capital plan, and those are based on the recommendations from Fleming, and also the GMA replenishment fee.
When is the typical cycle of when we see a budget? Because I know the city went to a 2-year cycle, and so what is it for the PHWA?
So I think we've done 1-year budgets for as far back as I can remember, certainly my time here, but even before that. So we've had we now have a little bit different cycle, whereas city is on 2-year, PHWA is still on 1 year, and we have these major elements to the budget coming up that Mr. Villafana just mentioned. I think what you'll see is something that will allow us, and it'll be very similar to the last fiscal year's budget, that allows us to continue basic operations, and then we'll plug in those major components as they become available to produce what would then be the final comprehensive budget for the current fiscal year. And I'm not particularly concerned about using that almost like a temporary budget approach, because it will give us the appropriation authority that we need for all of our day-to-day operations while those two major studies or elements are being developed.
So is that what we'll have then in October, something that would carry us through that time frame?
Yes, that's our plan.
It would
Okay.
be an operational budget, just
Okay.
to maintain our status quo until we get the GMA replenishment fee and finalize the input from the Fleming report.
Okay. All right, so any questions for staff? Yes, Member Jacobson.
One question, have we gotten any information from United with regard to the cost of the iron and manganese plant and when that fee is going to be assessed to us?
I haven't gotten anything firm on that. I'll have to check, and I get back to you on that.
Yeah, you can ask them next month
Yeah.
when they're
Okay. Yes. Member Bouchard.
I have just a series of questions from the report. You mentioned a cost of service study. When I hear cost of service study, I think pretty broad evaluation. Are we truly engaging like a formal cost of service study? Is that the intent?
Pete, would you like to answer that?
So, from my understanding, well, I think, let me take a second to just introduce myself. So, my name is Pete Martinez, and I'm the General Manager for the Channel Island Beach Community Services District. I've been on board with the district just over a year and a half now. And so I'm just getting involved now as the PHWA functions. And I think Jared, Mr. Bouchard, the question about the cost of service study, I don't think it's going to be a full-scale cost of service study, but the Navy had requested a informal documentation in order to be able to pass this through their agency. So that was a request that came through the Navy.
Yeah, I can follow up with that. We were looking to redo our contract, which is well overdue, and with the current situation with GMA and actually the PHWA having to look at assess fees and other things, it was, I think, in the best interest to kind of have that study after the condition assessment, which would then allow us to have more of a working capital. How that exactly works and how that'll function is to be determined, but at this point I'm working with PHWA staff on that, and we have a fleet of folks that are on our side to review, and the very first step of what they need to look at is a condition assessment, which basically shows that here's all the capital, here's all the fees, or here's all those things, and how it's broken up by user. So city, the port, the Navy, and other users.
I would just, you guys all know I have a long history here, and I would encourage us to, while I completely appreciate that, and would be supportive of getting the Navy whatever they needed, this exercise of cost of service, and that's why I asked the question. I'm not sure where we're going, but there was what was called the CAR process that was done in the early 2000s with this agency that set forth the current budgeting process. And when you look at your budget and the notes, there's a lot of what are fixed costs, what are variable costs, and making sure we don't get too far away from that, because that was a very contentious effort that was gone through by all the parties to get there, where everyone felt that the costs were being fairly allocated within the budgetary process. So I just encourage that we don't get too far away from that and open up a can of worms that followed the multiple agencies here for a little while, and we've been working very well together, and would hate to reopen some of those things. So just for reference. And I guess I would have a similar comment related to how do you anticipate the CIP budget being implemented? Is it anticipated that would go into the PHWA fees for the cost, or are we shifting away from where previously it was kind of the PHWA would put forth what was maybe needed, i.e. a few years ago we went through a membrane replacement process and used those very same principles that came out of the CAR process to establish what each party's capital input into that, or that cost would be, and it was each party's responsibility. Are we now building a reserve within the PHWA budget to fund the CIP? It's just a general question, rather than each agency kind of saying, hey, in 5 years we're going to have to put this forward to reinvest in our portion of our share of the capital cost, the PHWA.
what we're looking at is first we have to get what the capital improvement needs are. And that's going to drive how we fund them. And for a membrane replacement, which would probably be in the range of $200,000, somewhere in that ballpark, we would probably, approach the board and say, everybody needs to, allocate for that. For certain items, that would be minimum CIP. But the major CIP, and again, it depends on what Fleming's report says, those we would probably, present options how to finance that, or how to come up with the funding for it. And it may be where, the agency has to incur debt and borrow in order to cover that. And then every agency, member agency would have the pro rata share of debt service on it.
I appreciate that. I mention it because this is not one where every agency is in a different financial position when we walk forward in this being a joint powers authority, much like there was independent financing that occurred from the city, from the beach district when the plant was built. The membrane replacement project was set forth at $3 million, and every agency understood that they were going to have their share of that to put forward. So anyhow, just keeping in mind that we're pulling from different people's piggy banks, and how they decide to fund their share of it will be something I would be interested in and not want to see, because I know the beach district has been planning for some of these significant upgrades and need to invest, and may not be in a position that it wants to engage in financing. And so just making sure we have all those options. And that's, I just guess, my comment on that. I believe the United fees, the United adopted an OH budget for this year, which included, if I remember correctly, I want to say it's close to $500,000 to complete the design phase of the iron and manganese. And so included in your United fees is some portion of funding that on the OH pipeline budget.
Okay. Thank you, Member Bouchard, for bringing us to like where we are in 2019, but also recognizing all these important factors that need to be understood, as well as maybe processed through as we go through the budget cycle. Yes, Member Marcus.
I just have a question regarding the site. And I know there were some, issues regarding the site. So when we do long-term planning, I'm wondering how that fits in. Maybe that's too esoteric at this point. I'm not sure. Anybody have a thought?
Do you want to answer that, Mr. Villafana, or?
That's still being discussed, and it's still in the discussion. Our lease goes through 2028, as I believe.
Oh, that's right.
And so it's something that definitely has to be addressed, and probably in the near future, but there's been no resolution on that. And that would be something that I would confer with our executive director and council on, to see how they want to proceed on that.
Could that be something that maybe the staff discusses, between now and presenting this partial budget in October, maybe moving us forward to a couple of options that we might have, perhaps?
Sure. As those of you that have served on the board for a while know, we've had a couple of fits and starts over the last 3 and 4 years trying to engage with Oxnard on this issue, and we never quite get over the mountain in terms of solving it. But I know the previous executive director, general manager of the beach district had some ideas that we were working on before his departure, and we can definitely update the board. I think at least an update by the October meeting of where that all stands, and see if there's any desire to move forward with, again, another approach to Oxnard to see if we can get some more interest this time.
Okay.
I was just thinking in terms of capital improvement. Certain things that may be future we don't want to do unless we're certain we're going to be utilizing the site. I don't know what date. 2028 sounds as if we have time, but I'm not sure. So is there
is there a point where you would think, anybody who has experience with this kind of thing, that we really need to get very serious about it? I mean, I know we're serious, but,
Yeah.
and I know Oxnard is not ready to determine what they want to do, but.
Yes, attorney,
Attorney.
because I can't call you like city attorney, but
That's right.
Well, you can call him
the
Charlie.
PHWA attorney.
He's a little friendly.
Counsel.
I would be recommending that any in-depth discussion of the issue on the lease be in closed session.
Yes,
because,
correct.
It is a very complex situation involving things that don't necessarily have to do with the lease, which Oxnard wants to sort of solve everything. But it's been, even with that attitude, it's been very difficult to get them to engage. And every time that we would engage with somebody, that person would disappear. And then so it's been a unusual process. But any complex discussion about the issues, I think, needs to be in closed session.
All right, so
Thanks for that.
recognizing the sensitivity of that, you know, if we need to put an item on for a closed session just to bring us up to speed, that might be the best thing to do. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Villafana on the budget update? So I missed the part that we needed to receive and file both of these business items 4 and 5 at this point.
Move to receive and file.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And then we come to the part of board members' reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. So we'll start at this end over here. Ex officio Jacobson.
Yeah, I just wanted to report, I attended the AWA meeting for Councilmember Rollins, and just brief information. It was a very enlightening. I haven't been to one of those meetings before, so it was a very good meeting. A lot of great people, and they have a lot of activities that are available to all of us. And one being is, would you like to?
Yes, as you may know, they're going to be having the 24th annual AWA Member and Policymaker Reception at the Ronald Reagan Library this Thursday. And it's going to be starting at 5:30. How you can get there early at 4 if you want to. They'll have complimentary viewing of the museum. And they'll be having the speaker, Lieutenant Colonel retired Steve Cheelander, who I guess was a big hit in past presentations.
Very good.
They requested RSVPs by tomorrow, so the 17th. So if you are interested, I can either forward on this information, or this can be left here and you guys can look at it. But it does sound like a pretty good event. Nothing else for the group.
Okay, very good, thanks. Member Rollins?
No.
No? Member Marcus?
I would just add that it's very interesting and worthwhile to go to that event on the 19th. We are having a meeting in the district. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to be able to get there in time. Anyways, but thank you, and encourage everybody to go, especially if you haven't been. Thank you.
Okay, super. Member Bouchard?
Just wanted to, I guess just a couple of dates. September 23rd, which happens to be a Sunday, I thought was odd. The final comments are due for the groundwater sustainability plan that the GMA has put forward, the draft comments, or draft plan. So those final comments will be in here at the end of the week. That'll be an important piece in how we move forward here. At least give us one piece of the target we're looking at, possibly once they address all the comments, what ultimately gets adopted, but they have to submit by January 1st, 2020, that plan to the state. So that's coming forward, and my understanding is GMA staff is still working on the allocation ordinance, so we're still trying to figure out what direction we're going with that, but it does appear that the M&I portion of it is fairly well resolved in the GMA's eyes.
Okay,
That's all.
thank you. And Member Hernandez?
I have nothing new to report. I will be there on Thursday, so I look forward to seeing some of you there.
And just one comment here is that it takes a long time when any city happens to do something with their water, whether it's a new facility being built, et cetera. And so I just wanted to recognize that the city of Camarillo did a groundbreaking the other day for a new facility that they have at the corner of Los Posas and Lewis Road. It's no small feat. Councilmember Craven mentioned that it's gone through 7 different city councils, I believe, or members that had been part of the discussion. She'd been there from the very beginning. I don't know how many city managers and city attorneys, et cetera, but it does take a while to do. And with their groundbreaking, it looks like they'll be on board 2021. And that could possibly mean that there's going to be additional water for other agencies in this area, so congratulations for them. I don't have anything further here, so with that, then we will adjourn the Water Agency to the next meeting set for Monday, October 21st, 2019, to be held here at 4 p.m. in City Hall Council Chambers. Thank you.
I know. And it wasn't so, like, I don't even know, because it's not like it's turned in a report to the city council beforehand. There's no report per se. Yeah, so it's going to be an open book.
Yeah.
He just